I need you, guys and gals. So I wanted to be able to create something, a platform in which to be able to spread knowledge, health, and well-being to everyone around me. And in doing so, we've created this amazing community of patients and clients and friends and everyone wanting to learn more and more about what I've been doing. And now that the podcast has been taken off and people have been following me a little bit more on social media, there's a common question. Where did I learn all this stuff? And so over the past few years, I've been kind of cramming all this stuff together, and I've created this coaching platform where you have one-on-one access to me, and there are two different types of plans. There's a 6-month plan and a year-long plan for coaching, where I help you from how to start the business from the ground up, how to test properly. There's modules, there's handouts, there's basically all you got to do is say, hey, I'm in, pay your fee to get in. I will train you, I will coach you, I will get you up to snuff to make sure that you can start helping people in your community as well. And if you're like, is this for me? Anyone who has a beautiful heart inside, there is a vetting process for this, or an application process. I don't want terrible people joining this program because I don't want terrible people doing terrible things to people's health. You have to have a heart of gold here, really want to help others, and it doesn't matter what your background is. You could be a health coach, you could be a nutritionist or a dietitian, you could be a nurse practitioner, you could be a medical doctor, you could be a chiropractor. It doesn't matter. What I'm able to teach you is at a level that all the way up to like a surgeon can understand, all the way down to somebody who's never spoken a lick of health terms in their life. And then I can help to educate you to be able to formulate new custom protocols to be able to help patients in your community. So if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to me so that we can start opening this up and enrolling new docs or new patients or new people into this program so that they can learn what I've been able to do so you can help me to help the world. Thank you in advance, and I look forward to meeting with you guys. All right, welcome everybody. I am so excited to go over this interview with you guys. So this is Billy Ruehlmann. So he is a breakthrough specialist, and what he uses is a kind of a mixture between NLP and hypnosis to help you from where you are to maybe eliminate some of your limiting beliefs or some of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that may have been passed down to you. And he helps you to break through to the highest potential of yourself. So in this episode, we kind of talk about his method of how he gets patients in terms of the transformations, what to think, and what the experience actually looks like. And so Billy comes from this great place of passion. And I was fortunate enough to meet him when we did a float up in the Salt River up north. And we started hashing it out, and we were talking about weight loss in particular and helping people to eliminate the emotional vices that they may have had towards food. And so when he started speaking, he was so elegant about it, and he was so passionate about it, and he came from experience as well. So Billy's story is very strong with why he got motivated into doing this. And so this is a service that he's able to offer to everyone across the country from a virtual standpoint, from a retreat standpoint, from a corporate standpoint. He has the abilities and tools to be able to help you to reach your fullest potential through Billy's breakthroughs. Enjoy the episode. So welcome, Billy, to the Doc Jock Show. I appreciate you carving out the time away from the family today to spend a little morning with me here. So thank you for joining the show.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited about our chat.
Awesome, man. So Billy, you are a breakthrough specialist. We were kind of talking about this before we hit the record button. You specialize in that. So why don't you kind of dive into what you mean by that and how you allow people to reach that breakthrough potential?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey to this work kind of started 8 or 9 years ago. I started with my own physical transformation in the health space and became a trainer and did all of that. I feel like that's the normal evolution that people go through. So my wife and I eventually created an online fitness weight loss company, and I understood all the foundational components of, energy balance and macros. And if there weren't other things going on, I could get people really great results. But then after it was high fives and they moved on with their life, a lot of the time the weight would come back on. And it was frustrating for me. And for a while, I took that personally. It's like maybe I failed them or there's something missing. And it wasn't until I was introduced to neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis and this unconscious mind where our beliefs, our values, our conditioning, our programming kind of lives.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to explore there for myself first, and the amount of glass ceilings that I was able to break was just incredible. And I knew that in order to actually have lasting change, that these tools needed to be an integral part of people's work. And a lot of times it's not a one and done type thing, but having more tools in the toolbox helps you to course correct and keep moving forward to that ideal life.
Yeah, and I remember you, like when we first met, when we were on the river floating there, we had this conversation, and there was a depth in it too, and I could sense the passion that you had, and you said of the normal evolution. I don't see that as a normal evolution. I see that as your evolution, because we see a lot of trainers and coaches and stuff that stick and stay stagnant, where they're like, no, I'm comfortable here. Yeah, they'll blame other people. It's your fault. You're the one who screwed up. You paid for my services. That's it. And you were like, no, that doesn't sit right. Like in your heart, like you've got a great heart. And you're like, something has to be missing. And that's what I really loved about you when we met. And when you learned about the NLP and you learned about the hypnosis side of things, and you talked about how you can kind of reset the way that people were kind of approaching food and approaching nutrition, I was like, man, this guy knows what the heck he's talking about. So I love that you're bringing it to the Doc Show. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the big pitfalls that because obviously you've got great experience here. What are some of the like most common pitfalls you would see, or the mental loops that you're seeing, the subconscious stuff that you see on a daily basis that is, something that maybe a listener may be struggling with?
Something that I've experienced myself and that I see a lot of clients that I've worked with is there's no lack of information today as far as, what diet you should do. And for a period of time, if you do any diet, you see results.
Mm-hmm.
And then we fall into this trap. We eventually fall off of that diet and we regress. And then we blame it on like this lack of willpower, or, well, it was working, but I just didn't stick it out long enough.
Yeah.
And I see people in this digital loop. They keep trying to go and do the same thing that worked for a few weeks or a few months that got them to a result, when what got you to where you're at again right now, like it's just going to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So I think that in order to get something different, you need to try something different. And that's one of the things that I loved about this work is it's weird and it doesn't make sense. And for me, it took a while to accept that, because I would compare myself to someone like you that has more science-based knowledge, and I would hold myself back from going and helping people because I felt like I needed another credential, or I needed another degree or certification. And one of my mentors really closed that loop for me. And he said, why don't you just do what works and not necessarily, bother yourself with figuring out how it works. And once I did that, I was able to figure out more of the how afterward. So for me, it's kind of like this. The analogy I always use is a magic trick.
Okay.
The magician does this thing and everybody is like, holy cow, how did that happen? And it's really cool until you find out what he's actually doing. So, and then the power of it, the magic of it goes away. So with this work and doing things differently with the unconscious mind, I just do what works and I keep trying different techniques. So to go back to your question, if somebody's struggling with weight or health or nutrition, you have to be open-minded enough to consider doing these things that are a little bit different and weird. If you were wanting to explore this world of hypnosis and NLP, because if you just stick to what you've always done, you're going to be on that hamster wheel.
Yeah, and you can't get upset when you don't get results doing the same thing. Like, it's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So I love, and I know what you mean too with like the scientific stuff. And like, I was looking over to my bookshelf. I've got like 30 different textbooks over there, and I overconsume, and then it develops into this paralysis by analysis or overanalysis even, where it's like I need more information so I can serve more. When in
Sure.
reality, my body's like, just freaking do it. And so for you to be open to that and step into that creates it not just in a way where it's like, hey, it's NLP and hypnosis, but it creates it the Billy way, like your way, and you have that passion, and then you develop that experience, which then builds in that confidence, which also
Totally.
creates a niche, because there's so many people trying to sell these gimmicky weight loss things and stuff out there. But I see this all the time, even with patients too, where I try to send people to you because it's like, man, like you're doing great with weight. And then they'll be like, how long do I need to be on this diet? And I'm like, well, like, do you want to keep the weight off? Like, what is it that you want? And then we always find out that food has a lot to do with emotions. So a lot of my population I work with is Amish. So they'll have like a lot of gatherings in church, church goings and events and weddings. They'll have like 30 weddings in a month. It's insane. And they'll be going there. And then it's like that social pressure, that fear of fitting in. And it's like this emotional response of like, I'm stressed out. So what I notice a lot of times, and I would wonder if you do too, it goes back to like, what were our comfort patterns when we were a kid? What foods, what did we look for? What did we go and eat in those moments of stress? Do you see that a lot with people you work with?
Absolutely. There's such a strong correlation with a sense of belonging. Like food is a part of a lot of those events that you're referencing.
Yeah.
And there's that underlying human need. Like I know Tony Robbins, I hear always talk about it. Am I loved? Am I good enough? And we don't want to be ostracized from our family, and we don't
Yeah.
want to be that black sheep. So we continue to go with the herd and do what everybody else does. And one of the things that I like to talk about is truth and untruth.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people live in untruth when they're just doing what they're expected to do. And that's where the discomfort and the pain comes from. So there's the secondary gain, like they're frustrated that they keep eating the food or that they're not, changing their life, but they're also receiving love for not doing it.
Yeah.
So it's the whole carrot and stick. And you gotta be willing to get really uncomfortable. And what I have found is through incredible communication and confidence and figuring out what your truth is, not all the time, but a lot of times people respect that. That when they actually love and care about you and you're convicted because you've made this change at an unconscious level, they accept you for this new path that you're going to go on.
It's a good segue into a follow-up question with that too. When you work with a certain client, right, you may work with a wife or a husband or one or the other. Do you ever find that as that person steps into their truth and steps into their reason behind losing weight, and they change their diet and they change their eating habits, do you often see trouble between the relationship, or do you feel like the spouse steps into the supporting role and allows for that person to shift into their better calling?
Great question. In my experience, to be fully transparent, it's usually turbulent because they've become accustomed to like, this is my life, this is my person, and there's so much attached to that with emotion and identity.
Yeah.
And if one of the partners is going to change the way they do things, for them, there's this sense of loss and like, am I not good enough because you're not willing to stay here with me and suck?
Yeah.
So again, like that's where I love the neurolinguistics. It's the language of the mind. So there's this whole like weird wizardry world, but then there's also like just communication. And when you can get clear and know your values and know your beliefs and you can communicate that to your partner, there's a stronger likelihood that they'll be open to changing with you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you never want to see people split and cause discomfort in a relationship or a family.
Right.
But I believe that we're all deserving of living the life that we want. And I love the saying, like, I care enough that I don't care,
Hmm.
because if those things happen, I believe they were meant to. So
Sure.
yeah, more times than not, there's definitely some conflict that comes up, because if you change, then I have to change.
Yeah.
I'm scared to change.
Yeah.
So then all of our shit starts coming.
Yeah. And as we see a lot of times, like women are the main ones who want to lose weight. Not many men come to, at least to me anyways, and they're like, hey, I want to lose weight. Like that's not, unless they're like 300, 280 some pounds, like I could probably lose a little bit, but they don't usually care as much. But when the women come and then they want to lose it, then there's like, I feel that 99.9% of people out there are operating out of some sense of insecurity, whether they're conscious of it or it's a subconscious programming. And like you said, like when you marry the person that you marry their behaviors or thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, etc. And then if they choose to evolve, there is like that identity piece of like, well, how do I love this new person? And am I capable of it? And will they love me the same? And so because most men are operating out of insecurity, they guzzle that insecurity in and they're like, I'm not good enough. And so men who are scared tend to lash out or say negative things or try to pull people away from their goals. Like I think there was an example with like monkeys trying to go up a ladder to get bananas, and I think crabs trying to like crawl out of it, whatever. Like their own people will pull them down to make sure that they don't go up and reach their goals and get out. So when it comes to that, do you oftentimes see yourself working with maybe the wife and then the husband wants to get on board and try to figure out a way to reconnect at the same level that they were before? It's a tough question, I know.
Uh, I would say, like, I've never even, this is true for me as well, but I've never, seen it when you said, like, over the years, we've worked with a ton more women than men.
Hmm.
And for me personally, as a male, I feel like I've resonated with the women more. And I believe we coach what we most need to hear. And
Yeah.
I've always been self-conscious about my body and
Hmm.
wanting to figure this thing out. So, I've always kind of been in that camp. I don't know. I'd say it's 50-50.
Okay.
Times it draws a bigger wedge, and there's times where the pull is so strong from the unsupportive spouse that person ends up falling back into the way that things work. So I think it's very individualized, like
Okay.
how much pain is present, because that's one of the things that we foundationally talk about is usually we find people in three places. They're either in desperation, stagnation, or inspiration. And my job as a coach, like that stagnation is the maybe, it's the sitting on the fence.
Hmm.
And I always tell them, sitting on the fence hurts.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's where the indecision, that's where the pain comes from,
Okay.
is knowing that there's this thing I need to decide and you're not doing it. You're not willing to be decisive. So I need to make it worse, or I need to inspire them even more. Either direction, we're now in a place where change can occur.
Okay. Yeah, because I think one of the big pieces that you're kind of alluded to here is I think Tony Robbins talks about the pain pleasure principle.
Mhm.
So, I always tell people, what's your why? Like you have to have a strong why. If you're coming to me because you want your hair to grow more, it's like, well, why? What does that mean to you? Well, because it might look prettier. Okay, but what does that mean? And then you keep kind of digging and digging and digging until you find that strong why. When people straddle the fence, yeah, they're like, well, I could go this way or I could go that way. And then they flip flop or they have one foot in each camp. So you try to help them over here and then try to pull them over there, but then they put their foot back over here. And you're like, we have to make a decision, right? Like, what does it look like? And sometimes you can even future pace it, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years from now. If you continue to do this, what's your life going to look like? What's your relationship going to be like with your spouse, with your kids, with your grandkids? What's your quality of life going to look like? Is that something that you want to choose? Or do you want to choose, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years from now, you actually change and that's your future? How does that look for you? It's like cruise ships or nursing homes. So I see that too with the spouses. And sometimes I just want to smack the spouses upside the head. That's just me. That's my personality, because I'm like, come on, step into it, like support. But man, it's hard. And it is this emotional battle that a lot of people go through.
It is the way that I determine now if it's somebody that I'm going to work with
Hmm.
is, have you ever heard the analogy with the Coast Guard and who they save when they're out at sea?
No, I don't think I have.
So one of my best friends and mentors, I believe you know him, Sean Stevenson.
Yeah,
His,
yeah.
he had shared this with me years ago that he asked me the question, when the Coast Guard goes out and there's a shipwreck and there's people flailing in the water, who do they save first? There's only six spots on the helicopter and there's 30
Okay.
people. And immediately I went to the women, the children, the elderly,
Sure.
and I kept until my list was exhausted and I didn't come up with it. And he said, the people that are swimming towards you. Like you can
Mhm.
only help the people that are swimming towards
Yeah.
the. And in life, that where that analogy fits is there's people that are swimming towards you that actually want to be saved, and then there's a lot of people, there's more people that are just flailing in the water.
Hmm.
And if you try to save those people, you're going to drown with them.
Yeah.
And he also shared that in those situations they will actually punch the person in the nose that's kind of in a state of panic,
Yeah.
break their nose and bring them to present,
Yeah.
so that then they can take them where they need them to go, because there's a lot of like cries for help, but they don't actually want to change. So
Yeah.
I know for me as a coach and people that I spend my time with, and I want to be intentional with my time now, I need to know that they're swimming towards me and that they want this.
Yeah.
That's always been a huge, determiner
Yeah.
for, yeah.
I love that. I never even heard of that analogy. Then also, I'm like, oh man, like I automatically assumed the Coast Guard was there, everyone got saved. So I'm like, oh no. So so that puts a perspective on it. But I see that too. And a lot of the times, like when I first started in this, I would put people's health on my back, right?
Mhm.
And then I would just keep doing it, and I would keep doing it, and then it never left me. Like I would come home from the office, and Megan would be like, "You're stressed out. Like what's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I don't know. I'm good." And then next day, same thing. And then I would just start. My health would start, going down, and I would be stressed. I would be short. I would be irritable with people. I wouldn't go to the gym. I'd be miserable. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And it fits exactly like that. It's like I was putting people on my back and I was drowning with them, and I had no idea what was happening. So that's a great way to kind of vet who you work with, because you got to want it, because it's not always easy too. Like you're fighting a battle to become a different person. Growth is painful. It's never easy, and if it is, you're not really growing. You're just making lateral movements.
Exactly.
Nice. So how?
Yeah.
So when you get your people and you vet them, and they're good quality, they're swimming towards you and things. What are, without giving away your whole process, what do people experience when they work with you? So that a lot of this is going to be outside the normal realm of things with NLP. Like I know what that is, but most people don't. And then the hypnosis, most people are aware of what that is, but how do you use that? Like what would a patient experience if they come and work with you?
Absolutely. So one thing that I love to do is to educate at a very simplistic level, so that that resistance that they might feel, like what is this that we're about to go into, I want to lower that resistance
Yeah.
and bring some, for lack of a better word, like functionality to what we're about to do. So at a very basic level, if I could explain how NLP made sense to me, is that as a human being, we each have our own life experience. And we experience life through our five senses: visually, kinesthetic, auditory, gustatory, and olfactory. VAK, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, are the most prominent. And when we experience life, we delete, distort, and generalize information. And that leads into our beliefs, our values, our experience. And we develop these thought patterns and strategies for how we're going to get through life. And the unconscious mind, that's kind of how we operate.
Okay.
So the computer is the mind, but the unconscious is the program that we're running. So a lot of the people that I work with are, 30 to 50 to 60 years old, and the computer is not broken. They're not broken. The programming is just outdated. So there's
Okay.
this printing phase that goes on between ages 1 to 7, 1 to 8. And a lot of times they're 42 years old running a program that worked for them when they were 6. So first step is like understanding that VAK, like everything that you've experienced, if you can pull the context out of these traumas or phobias or negative emotions, what's the common denominator between all of them is pictures, sounds, and feelings.
Mm.
When I'm working with somebody, I'm just going to be scrambling around and playing with your pictures, sounds, and feelings. Is that okay? And that's it makes it simple enough and not scary
Yeah.
to kind of go into some of those deeper things that are contributing to whatever the pain is in their life. So I love to do that piece, and then I do what's called a backstory.
Okay.
So a brain dump in a sense, where I give them a questionnaire, and I want anything that's in their mind to get out on the paper
Hmm.
that I can kind of see and make sense of. This was your life, and this is where we're at now, and I can start to connect the dots because that gives me a really great roadmap as to what techniques and what paths we can go down.
Okay.
And I never know what a breakthrough session is going to look like until I kind of get an idea for the person and what they're dealing with.
That's great. And I love how you kind of simplistically explained it as well, where you're doing those things, you're asking permission to, and it's all about that safety and security as you're going into some of these things.
Yeah.
What would you say, if you're able to, what was one of your most profound breakthroughs with somebody that you worked with?
Hmm. I've seen some wild stuff. One client in particular, over time, they were actually a speaker, so they spoke for a living and traveled around. And over time, they developed a phobia for flying,
Okay.
and they couldn't get on a plane anymore.
Oof.
Just like tremors, and they just eventually started to sabotage their career because they're like, I can't
Yeah.
fly to these speaking engagements. And in a matter of 12 minutes, rearranging picture, sounds, and feelings and doing certain techniques, it was completely gone. And 3 days later, they were on a plane and traveling again. So it was impacting themselves, their family,
Yeah.
their income. That was significant. There's clients where they might have a food addiction that
Hmm.
they just eat this food all the time.
Yeah.
We were able to play with, again, pictures, sounds, and feelings, step modalities, switch things around,
Yeah.
and they literally cannot even think about this food anymore. They won't go there. So
Yeah.
it's really cool stuff. It's for me, it's like magic every single time.
Yeah.
And I like to keep it that way. Like I trust the tools and the techniques.
Hmm.
That's where my confidence comes from because I know
Sure.
if I stick with them long enough, we're gonna get to resolve.
Yeah.
All we need is a small shift. Like the analogy, big doors swing on small hinges.
Yeah.
So that same concept here, like I just need to change the dial a little bit somewhere, and then everything changes. Because if this one thing is no longer true,
Hmm.
20 other things aren't true anymore. And it's just like it's freedom at this unconscious level because their beliefs change, the way they see the world, the way they experience things in the past. It's it's just really fascinating. The traumas and phobias and negative emotions that are released through linguistics by changing
Yeah.
a word, changing a pattern, a strategy that this thing that was causing so much turbulence in their life.
And I love that you brought up different examples, not just weight loss, because the application, the clinical application of this, it's pretty much endless, right? Like pretty much anybody could benefit from it if they have a block.
Absolutely. And I always try to be not careful, but say this properly, not to offend anyone, but to encourage them that whatever they're going through or whatever happened to them, I've seen everything from, my parents weren't around when I was a kid to my best friend died in a car with me in high school
Yeah.
to, to rape to very basic stuff. Like I didn't make the basketball team in fourth grade.
Yeah.
With the unconscious mind, it takes everything literally
Hmm.
and personally. So we adopt these like very strong emotions around
Yeah.
it. But the story, like the context, it doesn't matter when you're doing this work. And that's what's really cool is the confidentiality.
Hmm.
I can do techniques with people and they don't even have to tell me what happened or who or
Hmm.
when or why. They just have to play around in their mind with me
Yeah.
and it can go away. So the context isn't as relevant as the content isn't as
Hmm.
relevant as context.
Yeah.
If
I
that
love
makes
that. Yeah, yeah, because I think that was something that I wasn't aware of. I thought you would have to be more transparent and like lay everything out there. But for people, like the innate intelligence within us is a beautiful thing, and when we do go through certain traumas, our body feels it, it stores it, and it wants to keep us safe from that again, and so it like guards it. And so if you're able to open that up and recalculate or fix up that scenario a wee bit more, then yeah, the trajectory of your life can change. And I think, yes, Marvel and Avengers and all that stuff are ruining the movies and stuff, in my opinion. But one of the cool things that they did in this Loki series that they had was they were talking about the timeline. And so you have like these timelines where they're talking about like the quantum side of things. And it's like you have this path that you're supposed to be going on, and it's based off of everything that's happened back here. And then if you just tweak a little thing, then it changes the trajectory and you create this new linear path, this parallel universe basically of what you can do, be, and be seen as. So it's such a beautiful thing, man. Like I absolutely love what you're doing. I'm like, I feel like I need to do this. I don't know if there's any blocks that I have, but I'm like, let's get something on the book so I can see if there's ways that I can improve myself. And I'm thinking there's a patient I may actually reach out and send your way. Been through some tremendous trauma. Been to like therapists and stuff too, and we'll kind of segue into that because I don't. I mean, there's a time and a place for therapy, but I personally have never seen somebody be better through therapy, not once in my life. So when people come to you and they're like, well, I have a therapist or I've been working on this and stuff, how do you kind of bridge the gap? Because obviously what you do is way different and to me, way more effective than what they're doing over here. But how do you bridge that gap for people?
Yeah, really, really great question. I really try to put us in two completely different camps
Okay.
because I'm not a therapist
Right.
and I don't want to overpromise someone.
Sure.
More of a subtle suggestion of like, hey, have you tried this? And I'm of the same belief as you.
Yeah.
I believe there's a time and a place, and I also don't know enough about therapy in general that I'm gonna speak to, having somebody not go and do that. However, this work, the amount of change that I've seen in somebody in minutes, where for me it feels like therapy is this show up every week or every month and let's talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
Where this is like, let's play this game in your mind for a couple minutes and then move on with our life.
Yeah.
So, one of my close friends and current mentors, I'm not sure if you've heard of Michael Burnoff
I don't know if I've heard of. I'll look them up though.
in Scottsdale, and
Okay.
I've been learning from him now for about 6 years.
Nice.
But in that same conversation, he was like, the stuff that we do to society, if I was to get on like a Facebook Live, people would think I'm weird.
Yeah.
And he said, what I think is weird is hopping on a prescription drug and just taking it for the next 40 years without asking anything else.
Yeah.
Or just, depression and anxiety on the neurolinguistic programming side of things. we're very careful about what we identify with.
Hmm.
Because if you say I have trauma, like trauma can be chronic.
Hmm.
If you have this thing, then you're kind of fucked. Like nobody can help you. Or I have depression, or I
Hmm.
am depressed. That's very, very scary in a sense to
Hmm.
believe about yourself,
Yeah.
because I would try to unravel that and loosen the grip of that problem and ask, like,
Hmm.
are you always depressed? When did it begin? What were you doing differently when you weren't? And all of a
Hmm.
sudden, I am depressed becomes, I feel depression sometimes when this happens. And now we have options. Now we can actually get somewhere. So, I felt moments when I'm down. I felt, you know, feelings that I would identify with anxiousness.
Hmm.
That's more a pattern, I like to say, a pattern that I'm running. And then I'm going to look for evidence that I can implement. Like when did I shift it in the past, and what did I do to get me out of this state? Because we want to be in a resourceful state. We always talk about emotion, or motion creates emotion.
Mm.
So that's where the whole cliche, nobody's ever regretted a good workout,
Yeah.
comes from. So like when you're feeling these unwanted feelings, there's things that we can do to combat that. And I'm just a proponent of continuing to try things and until something works. And if you've been going to therapy for years and years and years, it's probably not working.
Yeah. And I had a patient earlier this week who was like, I'm going to fire my therapist because I get more out of you than I get with them. I'm like, okay. And she's like, why do I, like what you said, why should I keep going to this therapist? I've been going for years. I'm not getting results. And all they do is continue to talk about the same thing every single time. And so, a lot of it is like the pattern recognition. And do you know who Stephen Jaggers is? Somatic breath work.
Breath work, yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
his stuff, but I'm not familiar.
We had him on the podcast before, and he said something really great. He said a lot of stuff that was really great, but he was basically like, our body is designed to respond to the environment that we put it in. And we're so quick to diagnose our bodies as something wrong with it versus figuring out what actually tripped up our environment and what caused our perception to see it as such a threat. So when you're having like the I am or I have, like you gotta have to, like you said, unravel that, like loosen up the grip. And the I am confirmations and affirmations, and the I have, like that's a very strong rooted thing, and it's the same speech that you tell yourself. It's that auto suggestion, and when you tie words to a deep emotion, it's very difficult to create a new environment because you keep telling yourself you were the same as what you were the day prior. So for you to be able to loosen that grip, like I want people who are listening to be like, man, like I've been struggling with blah, blah, blah for X amount of years. I haven't found anything that works. Reach out to Billy, and with Billy and everything that you do, you can use some of these tools to be able to get these breakthrough for patients and people who may have not ever seen results in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of the things in terms of like offerings and how can people find you and what are some of the service and things that you offer?
Yeah, so on either Facebook and or Instagram, Billy Ruehlmann, and Ruehlmann.
We'll have
I
my
was
team
always,
spell it.
yeah, I was always the kid growing up. My last name was always wrong on my jerseys.
Yeah. Or
Uh,
or hyphenated because you would probably need two lines to fit it on the back of a jersey.
right, absolutely. But yeah, so I do VIP breakthrough days with
Okay.
clients where it's an 8 to 12 hour intensive.
Okay.
We have follow up meetings after that. After we set our action plan, so we get that backstory, we do our change work, and then we put a roadmap, like this is how we're going to live life differently, and then we check in with each other to make sure that we're on track.
Okay.
And then we have year-long coaching programs. Currently, we've got some exciting stuff coming out with our brand and our community, the Reinvention Nation.
Okay.
We help people reinvent themselves and with a focus on health, but really bringing this work into it so that we're not repeating the same stuff over and over again. So we're excited about those two things. And we have retreats as well, smaller, intimate, 10 to 12 people. So those might be a great fit for somebody looking for community.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of this too, is, you can do the work yourself,
Hmm.
but I believe that we were meant to be living life with other people. And for me, that's very true. Whenever we isolate, that's when, that stinking thinking starts and
Yeah.
just don't feel great. So, the last 4 or 5 years, what that's done to people's psychology. And
Yeah.
I think like the real epidemic is loneliness. So do the work, do it with other people that are on the same journey. And, when you can plug into a community and have this ongoing conversation, I feel like it accelerates your progress.
I love it. And I agree with you. There's a certain bonding piece to that. Like, if I don't know if you know Johnny L. Sass or not, but we call it trauma bonding. When we, yeah, well, yeah, you met Big Johnny, but like when we do the Wildman experiences and stuff, like that's trauma bonding, and you develop these friendships, even if it's just in a couple of days or a weekend. Like
Yeah.
you have friends for life because you've gone through something together, and it's like this accountability piece. I really love that.
Yeah. I went through, Johnny, it was called Activate Your Alpha
Yeah.
event, and there was definitely some trauma bonding there.
Yep, that's right on brand for Johnny. But
It was very, very humbling because I wasn't in the shape I thought I was.
mm,
And, as a man, and right around that time, I was going to become a father pretty soon.
yeah,
And being able to lead, but also be led was super important for me. And like being willing to connect with other people and ask for help. And,
yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I love Johnny.
Yeah, we tend to be terrible at that with men. Like we are like we tend to be afraid to ask for help because we feel it maybe like a sign of weakness, and a lot of that is the subconscious programming, that inner self chatter that we have. But like you said, like the real epidemic or pandemic, whatever you want to call it, is that loneliness, that separation from, like we live close to each other, but we're doing this over Zoom, or like we have these cell phones or we have computers, and everything is through a screen or through a distance. And when you have that community, there is something amazing at kind of mixing up all of those energies. So if somebody's out there and like, hey, I want to do it, you can do a full day with you, but I would recommend do the full day and maybe join one of the events as well. And then do you offer this for like small businesses and things too? Like, do you do like you go to the business and kind of work with the employees as well?
Up until now, I have not done.
Okay.
I'm absolutely
Yeah.
open to things like that, kind of like a corporate retreat.
Sure. Yeah.
When you have team and you can go through an experience like that and get raw and vulnerable, it just connects you on
Yeah.
that human level. So yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great idea. I'm always open for expanding and pushing my
There you go.
comfort zone as well.
Yeah, just came up with another business idea for you. So take it and run with it, Billy. Awesome, man. Well, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out here today to share this information. I know that, we rescheduled before, but this is like the perfect time for us to do this because of my patients' experiences. So like I want this podcast to get out there so that the patients I have spoke to recently who I've plugged your name to, they'll put a name to a face, and then they'll see what you have to offer and the passion that you have behind it. Because I think honestly, anybody and everybody can benefit through this or with this. So reach out to Billy, whether it is on Instagram or on the website or whatever it might be. Just reach out and figure out how you guys can work together. Because Billy, you're going to change the world. I already know that because you've got a heart of gold. You and Kenzie together are a freaking power team, and your little dude is going to be a part of that as well. So like, I'm really excited for your whole family and just to really kind of step into this. And I'm excited to see what your little dude turns into with this type of knowledge and being able to help them as he's growing up and developing. Because it's going to be a little world changer there.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. Yeah, from knowing that I can deliver this to him and that he'll get to see me living it out and constantly doing the work, it'll be a great example for him to get
Yeah.
started a lot younger than I did. And I feel grateful being as young as I was when I was introduced to it.
Yeah.
Totally. And I want to thank you too for how much you've done for our family. I
Yeah.
know Andy was going through a pretty rough time there.
Yeah.
You were able to find solution for us and relieved
Yeah.
a lot of stress and pain. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciated the fact that you trusted me, and I saw the text go through, and you're like, "Do you remember me?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I freaking remember you, of course." He's like, "My wife needs help." I'm like, "All right, let's do it." And yeah, she bounced back super fast, and she's on her own little protocol to health. And again, like when it comes to other people's family relationships, et cetera, it's an honor to me that you trusted me to be able to do that for her. So yeah, I'm excited to see. I have a feeling we're probably going to be working together on some things in the future here, because I'm thinking just retreat wise, like when we start doing our retreats, if you
Yeah.
can do like a breakthrough day with some people and we can have people go through that, then we just teach healthy living and some of the other things, whether it's Reiki or sound healing, breath work, we can stack like this whole wellness retreat together and have it be something that I honestly don't think anybody else is doing it. So we'll just like trademark it here, like nobody steal our idea, but we'll make it happen. Awesome, man. Is there any, or are there any departing words that you would have for anybody who is listening right now that maybe they may be hesitant to work with you? Something that you might say to them?
I would just encourage you that what you want exists if you have the courage to go after it. And, don't settle for this good enough life. If you're not feeling right, if you're stuck, if you're frustrated, there is change waiting for you. And whether it's with me or someone else, like keep digging, keep asking questions because you deserve to live a vibrant, exciting life and get out of bed every day and love your life. So if I could give people anything, it's hope and encouragement, like just keep going. And there's people waiting to help you. And we're both one of them, or two of them.
Yeah. Two. We're one and the same.
We're all one.
We are all one. Awesome,
Yeah.
man. Again, thank you again for taking the time out there. I'll let you get back to the family. Be sure to say I said hi. But yeah, man.